What's going on, everyone? This is Zach. Finally got to sit down after Memorial Day weekend and talk about the LA regionals. We're also going to talk about the Lima Special Event and the Mexico City Special Event, but those will be after. If you guys enjoy this content, do not forget to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments down below what team really spiked your interest from the LA regionals, because people are really mixing it up, and it's pretty cool so far. So first off, congratulations to Montana Mott, which him and Audie had a very similar team, but he ended up taking the win with the Assault Vest Rillaboom, Incineroar, Urshifu Rapid Strike, Clefairy, Tornadus, and Calyrex Shadow. So basically, what you see here is kind of the Urshifu Rillaboom Incin Torn matchup with the Clefairy Calyrex Shadow Rider, and then you probably bring your two Fake Out or whatever you need from these three, whether you need to set Tailwind or you want Urshifu at the end. I think it's a really cool team. Shadow Rider finally got some usage, finally got some wins. It's good to see. One thing we notice about the winning team, it's spell tag, so you get a boost on your ghost type moves without the recoil of Life Orb. It really takes advantage of the Astral Barrage, not to mention the Friend Guard and the Heal Pulse that you get from Clefairy, so you're able to stay around, especially with that Terra Fairy Draining Kiss after a couple of boosts. And then like the Nasty Plot is there to really take advantage of passive plays. And once again, because of the Clefairy, like in most situations, you might not need Focus Sash. Now, there is no attacks on the Clefairy, so that is something you want to watch out for if you want to use this team like that. People are going to know, and a taunt will shut down the Clefairy very quickly. Audie ran a similar team. The only difference is that his Rillaboom was Choice Band. He had Sing over Heal Pulse on the Clefairy, and then he went for the AV Raging Bolt instead of the Torn, which, I mean, Electro Webs, Thunderclap, if you have the priority, you really don't need as much speed control unless you're going against something like a Farigiraf. But I believe they played in top 4 or top 8, and Montana actually ended up taking it. Audie's also had Taunt over Montana's Aqua Jet, which I think the Taunt probably really helped Audie in a lot of matchups. I think having the non-priority Taunt is a pretty good play right now. But congratulations to Montana once again. Let's talk about these top 8 teams. So Calyrex Shadow Rider taking 50% of the top 4, with Ice Rider taking 50%, no, not 50%, almost 50%, 3 out of 8 spots in the top 8. Pelipper for the support. Once again, Pelipper is doing really well. You see Justin Burns here, instead of rocking the Pelipper, he is rocking the Choice Scarf Ditto, which if you position it well, if you get it in the right position, it can be really, really good. Calyrex Shadow Rider's Ghost type matchup gives it a pretty good matchup against the non-Terra Terrapagos. So you're not able to hit it until it Terras, but it's also really not able to hit you, which allows you to take away Terrapagos' support. And you know, most Terrapagos want to Terra eventually, so you can just wait and take advantage of that. Also, the Ghost typing with Zamazenta as well. With Zamazenta, if you're Ghost type, you don't really have to worry about body press that much. Not at all. So I think that's really good. There is the Wide Guard, but then you're leaving your main damage dealer, your Zamazenta, to be a Wide Guard spam, and you can just play around that, especially if you are using something like the Chien-Pao. You can get a Draining Kiss on the Chien-Pao and break the Focus Sash very easily. Once again, Ditto in the top 8 spot. I believe is it Choice Scarf or is it Focus Sash? It's Choice Scarf. Yeah, that makes sense. Koraidon with Colin and Rajan, giving it 2 top 8 spots. And I think this team is really cool. The Gothitelle here gives you Fake Out, gives you non-Prankster Taunt. It's Terror Dark, so it can't be. So if you want to, avoid Prankster stuff, you can go Terror Dark on it. And then the rest of the team just kind of takes advantage of the Sun. You got Whimsicott to set Tailwind and set Sun, probably Encore as well. Caridon here, really good damage dealer in the sun. You have Fluttermane, great damage dealer using photosynthesis. Raging Bolt using photosynthesis. Chi-Yu using the sun. This team I'm really interested in. This is kind of like what I want to look at next. But Terra Ground Chi-Yu, I forget which one of these had it. Yeah, Rajan's, I wonder if Collins did as well. I believe it did, yeah. Both of them are Terra Blast, Terra Ground to deal with the Miraidon, which I think is kind of a cool tech. The only bad part about this is that you lose any, safety you have when it comes to Terra from stuff like Fake Out and then stuff like Surging Strikes, like any type of water type move. But then if you're really worried about that, you have the Raging Bolt to do what it needs to do. But yeah, I think the Caridon teams are really cool. And another thing we want to mention, there's no Zamazenta, there's no Caridon, there's no Terrapagos in the top 8. So we have seen most of the restricteds have some level of success, and I think that's really cool. But let's move down to the other teams. Day 2 teams, I want to say. The first one I want to talk about is Michael Zhang's teams, because Michael Zhang's team is really cool. He took the Zamazenta team, and what did he swap out? I think he swapped out an Incineroar. Let's see if we can find something similar. I think it was the Pelipper. I think he swapped out the Pelipper for a Flash Fire Chandelure. So one thing I really like about the Chandelure is that it walls out completely the current Caridon sets. Because what does Caridon have? It has Collision Course, it has Flame Charge, and Flare Blitz. With a Ghost type with Flash Fire, you're totally immune to the Caridon. So that's definitely a play that you can make. Not to mention, if you are going to take a fire type move into the Zamazenta, you can switch in the Chandelure, which we saw Michael do on stream, and that really punishes and it makes your opponent second guess going into your Zamazenta with fire attacks. So I think that is really interesting to see, and I think it's really cool. Taunt on the Moltres, once again, non-priority taunt on a dark type, so you really don't have to worry about getting taunted first or stuff like that. So solid overall. We see Groudon getting a 15th place, a top 16 result. Once again, taking advantage of the sun. You got the Chi-Yu and the Fluttermane that want to take advantage of the sun. You got the Tornadus there to set the sun if you don't want to bring one of the Sunsetters, or if you have lost your Groudon already. But the Thunder Punch is a really good tech for Kyogres if you want to click Sunny Day and then Thunder Punch into it. And Urshifu's at that. But then you also have the Rillaboom to help with that stuff as well. Thunder Punch can also help out with flying types, like opposing Tornadus that want to maybe set the Rain Dance. Tornadus here is interesting, not going Whimsicott, because from basically what I've seen, if you're running Sun, you want to run Whimsicott because Whimsicott's just faster. It has a lot more utility. I guess they went with Tornadus for that, that extra bit of damage that Bleak Windstorm can get you over Moonblast. And one thing I noticed is that you're seeing a lot of Chi-Yus. Chi-Yu is really taking advantage of that sun. The Terra Ground was a thing that I saw a decent amount of people tech. Did Grant do it? No, Grant went Ghost. So it's either Ghost or Ground on the Chi-Yu, but we see a lot of Chi-Yus right now trying to take advantage of the usage of Sun being able to boost the photosynthesis mons. So you can go Terra Ghost to take Fluttermane hits a little better, Dazzling Gleams a little better, and then you also have Terra Ground to evade the electric attacks. I don't know how much more we'll see Terra Ground, especially with the Miraidon not getting as much top placings. Seems like people have figured out how to play around Miraidon. Miraidon still had a decent amount of showing, but we'll talk about that when it comes to usage. Any other teams that I want to talk about? No, we talked about the Chi-Yu, we talked about Michael Zhang, we talked about Groudon. Let's talk about usage. Okay, so day one, we have Miraidon being the top for day one usage with 16%, Calyrex Ice Rider being at 13, Terrapagos 12.5, Zamazenta, you know, the four that we've seen success in, and then you have the other four, which when you look at the day two, Groudon gets a big jump, Calyrex Ice Rider gets a big jump, Terrapagos drops. Same with Zamazenta, I think went up a little. No, it dropped a little. But the Koraidon here and Groudon staying consistent with that 3%. So that means the people who were using Groudon, most of them did pretty well. And Zacian being a big surprise here, getting some day two play here. I do think that Zacian could be something we look out for. I just don't know. Like, do you run the Swords Dance? Do you run the Substitute? Do you run the Sacred Sword, the Play Rough? I want to say Sacred Sword right now because of the Terrapagos and the Zamazenta. But I think you have a bad matchup in Zamazenta right now. I don't know. It's just based on what you build around and what else? Let's talk about regular usage. Once again, Incin, top spot. Everything's looking pretty even here. You see Incin, big drop from the previous ones where it was hitting the 60 to 70% range. It's back down to 42. But as you look at those first four slots, what do you got? You got Incin, you got Rillaboom, you got Tornadus, you got Urshifu Rapid Strike. It's a combination we all know. You got the Fluttermane and the Raging Bolt picking up the last six, and then you got your support mons. You have your Moongus, you have your Whimsicott, you have your Furrier, you have your Pelipper, and then we see those specialties for the team, either Chi-Yu based on what you need, or Chien-Pao based on what you need. So, are you running a special team or are you running a physical team? When we look at day two, though, look at the Chi-Yu. Chi-Yu, like I said, is really taking advantage of that sun. You got the Rillaboom, you got the Incin, and Raging Bolt is once again back up there. Amoonguss, taking down the spots, even though I want to say Rapid Strike and Tornadus's usage dropped versus day two. Like I said, if you take a look at these top teams, you got the core. You have almost the core, but you have Amoonguss. You have the Rillaboom. Umbreon. Let's talk about Umbreon. Umbreon is another thing that I think we're going to see a lot more of. It does decently well into the Shadow Rider with Snarl, with Foul Play, with Taunt, with Yawn. The Foul Play is really good in the non-priority Taunt and the Inner Focus, so it can't be faked out. So that's really good for stopping Trick Room. And with a team like this, you're going to want to stop Trick Room because either that or you got to stall it out. We do see the Terra Ground Rillaboom, which I think is interesting. But I guess it definitely has a reason. You get a Terra boost on the high horsepower. You take away terrain from Miraidon. That can really put you at a good advantage. But yeah, Rillaboom jump back up in usage. The AV, the terrain control, fake out, gives it extra stuff. Raging Bolt still dominant once again. I want to say Raging Bolt is probably going to increase the more that we see this Rapid Strike Urshifu Incin Rillaboom combination, because it handles it decently well. Wims outclass Torn in day two. This is probably because we're seeing more Sun teams. If you're using Sun, you're probably using Whimsicott because it's faster. But then again, when it comes to board position, you might not want a faster one. So take that at what you will. Chi-Yu, once again, bumping up in usage. And Iron Hands gets a little bit of a showing. Iron Hands down here for day 2 usage at 14.5%. Probably just to, deal with Ice Riders and give another fake out option that's not Ensign. So with the Drain Punch, you can hit Zamazenta decently hard. With you can hit Ice Rider really hard. And if it tears, you can go to Wild Charge or Thunder Punch. So Iron Hands is to deal with like opposing Trick Room. I definitely think that Rillaboom and Rapid Strike Urshifu was a meta call to deal with the rise of ground types that are coming in to deal with the Miraidon team. Volk got some play here. We did see some Volcaronas, especially in the special events. We saw a couple in day 2. Where were they? Dominic Gladys's team at 10-4 in 18th place. And then there's 2 more down here at 21st and 22nd. And the Volcarona is basically there to kind of get around that clear amulet. So if you can't drop the stats, what's the next best thing? Well, burn it. We've seen some Ensigns carry Will-O-Wisp to deal with that, but if you can have Rage Powder support or you can have Quiver Dance set up, Volcarona is pretty good for both of those things, and getting the burns on physical attackers is really good. And like I said, with the Umbreon and Audie's Urshifu, non-priority taunt has definitely, jumped up a bit in usage to stop Trick Room if Indeedee or Farigiraf's on the field, stops Trick Room, stops Amoonguss, stops Setup. Before we get to the predictions, let's talk about the special events. First one, we see Terrapagos dominated in it. Terrapagos Volcarona is the team to beat, it seems like, in the Lima Special Event. Once again, getting around those physical attackers. And if you can, get the burn on the physical attackers, that's a lot less threats to the Terrapagos here. You got the Clefairy for Friend Guard, Tailwind set up, and then you got your Fire Water Grass with Rillaboom, Ensign, and Ogerpon Wellspring. So just this looks like a, protect the Terrapagos team. Same with this. But I feel like the Wellspring is probably better in this situation. Whew. Jeez. Once again, inside the Ensign, they got the Chi-Yu, they got the single strike Urshifu. This one's a Rapid Strike on the Calyrex team. Once again, Calyrex had a great weekend. And when we look at the New Mexico, no info yet. I didn't watch the stream, but David Rodriguez won the Mexico City Special Event with a Shadow Rider team. So that being said, Shadow Rider's coming back up. Where do we go from here? So one, we saw a couple of increases. We saw a couple of shifts. We saw the non-priority taunt. So maybe go more hyper offense. Don't try to set up as much. We saw Shadow Rider coming back up, so get your Shadow Rider answers back out. I feel like Shadow Rider had a really good opportunity to do well in this tournament because everyone was focused on the Terrapagos. Everyone was focused on the Zamazenta. And when you're focused on that, you're not making game plans for the Shadow Rider as much. Raging Bolt and the Urshifu Rilla Ensign combo came up. So what I think can we do? Ting-Lu is once again like a good Shadow Rider answer. You can have the Snarl here, or you can have Heavy Slam. It all depends on what you want to do and how fast they Terra. I don't know what Terra would work for this. I just want to say like probably like Terra Grass. That way like you get rid of the water weakness. You get rid of the grass weakness with the ground typing here. So I don't know. It's just like with a set like this, like you want Assault Vest. With like Ting-Lu wants to have all these moves to hit certain things. Maybe you could drop Rock Slide. I don't know. You can also have like Throat Chop to deal with parting shots. But you would have to like outspeed the ensign, which they're getting a little bit faster. So like, I still don't think Ting-Lu is in a good spot. I do think it could answer some things. If Calyrex Shadow Rider just showed up and not the Firewater Grass of Ensign, Rillaboom, Urshifu, then I would say Ting-Lu's in a good spot. I don't think so right now. Raging Bolt. The more you see that Rapid Strike Urshifu and Tornadus come up, the more you're going to see Raging Bolt. Once again, Assault Vest. You got your Thunderclap. Most people go Draco Meteor for the big damage. You could go, if you plan on staying on the field, you could go Dragon Pulse, but you can miss some big knockouts there. And then like I like Electro Web for speed control, additional speed control. It's always good on your team to have more than one, whether it's Icy Wind or Electro Webs. And then like the Snarl to keep the special attackers at bay. Here with the Assault Vest, it's very standard Raging Bolt, but I feel like you're going to see more and more of it. You might see it change Terras. I don't know. It depends on how much ground types stick around. I don't know if the ground types are going to stick around with, like I said, the Fire, Water, Grass combination of Ensign, Rillaboom, Urshifu. The ground types are handled pretty well with that. Kyogre. It feels like Kyogre should be good, but like there's so many weather setters. There's so many things that want to control the weather. And, you know, for a second I thought Rayquaza would be a good way to deal with the weather. It's not. Don't do it. It's not. But I feel like now could be Kyogre's time to shine. Especially we saw like a little bit of the AV Kyogre here, like the Terra Grass. I feel like you need to find a better Terra for it. But Terra Grass is just to like deal with Rillaboom, but then you open yourself up to like Tornadus and stuff and Icy Winds and all that good stuff. But yeah, most of them are just going Water Spout, Origin Pulse, Ice Beam. Now, if you're going AV, all these things want to be AV. You can go Mystic Water and Protect. But Ice Beam is really good for like these flying types, these ground types, the grass types. Ice Beam is a really good move to have. Like usually you see some Kyogres like switching between Thunder and Ice Beam. Now it's just like all Ice Beam. Another thing I could see coming back is Choice Scarf Lando T. We've seen people move away from Incineroar. We've seen the ground types. What deals with ground type moves? A flying type. What deals with electric type Pokemon? A ground type. What deals with Raging Bolt? A ground type. So I can see Lando I and Lando T, because we've seen Lando I prove itself in these formats in Scarlet and Violet. I could see them making a comeback. I wish we had a good Defiant Mon. We could go Milotic. But yeah, just like the U-turn, Rock Slide, Terra Blast, Stomping Tantrum, like U-turn. I feel like you really can't go wrong with like these four moves. You have two ways to hit ground types. You have a spread and then you have a single target. I like the Stomping Tantrum because you can lock in and like punish protects. The Stomping Tantrum can hit Zamazenta before Terra really well. Can hit Incineroar before Terra really well. If the Koraidon becomes a fire type, it can hit Koraidon decently well. And once again, with the Rapid Strike Urshifu, the Instant, and the Rillaboom, for Farigiraf, I don't think we're going to see it go up, but I think we're going to see it stick around a little more. Farigiraf is just one of those things. It's just been so, it does so well. It's been so dominant. And I can see things like, you know, like we've seen both Ursalunas come up. What was it? Day 2 had 17 ground type Pokemon. That's not including the Terra Grounds. That's just the ground types. Whether it was Ting-Lu, whether it was Landorus, whether it was Blood Moon or regular Ursaluna. And Fluttermane. I think with Fluttermane, I think the one thing we might see here, you have to keep Icy Wind now. Like, you need that second form of speed control. But do we lose Moonblast here? Or do we lose Shadow Ball? I always say, like, keep D-Gleam over Moonblast, just because it's a spread move. So you have 2 spread moves, and then you have 2 regular moves. You might just want to go Moonblast so you don't have to deal like Wide Guard shenanigans. But I think Fluttermane's going to stick around, be a little faster. Power Gem is something you're going to see more and more, especially with all these Sun teams coming up. Power Gem hits a lot of the Chi-Yus, a lot of the Tornadus, decently hard. But yeah, that's what I would expect to see. I don't know about the Kyogre, but what do you guys think? Did you enjoy the LA Regionals? There's a couple more matches that I didn't catch that I have to catch up on, but those were mostly day 1. I heard a lot of people, like, there was a lot of like difficulties with the setup of the tournament and all that stuff. So a lot of people didn't do as well as they wanted to because of that extra level of stress. But is Shadow Rider back? I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys enjoyed this content. Do not forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, I'm Zach, and we'll see everyone later.